Please join us in welcoming our panelists for this session, Tech Trends 2025. Explore what's new and next in emerging technology, presented by Deloitte.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. How you doing? Happy Monday, CES. My name is Bill Briggs. I'm Deloitte's Chief Technology Officer and have the joy of living in Silicon Prairie, Kansas City. So who can beat me on 7 flights to get here? 6 canceled. Anybody? And it was a glory of, but we made it, and the show will go on. We're going to have an awesome panel discussion in a minute. But first, we're going to just take a second to talk about what we're seeing in the world of technology. And what a great place to do it here in CES. So the feeling that we see from our clients, the feeling that we have ourselves at Deloitte, the pace of change of technology has never been faster. The amount of change happening, the volume, the magnitude of it has never been greater. And the real action becomes, how do we translate that potential into the investments that we should be making to not just do the things we've always done a little bit differently, but how do we also harness it to disrupt the way we work, how we think about customer experience, how do we think about the products we offer in the market, even the markets that we participate in, our industries, our business models. So I believe in dialectics, 2 things that can seem like they're contradictory statements, but they're both actually true. So the first one is what I just said. The pace of change has never been higher. The amount of change is staggering. There's 100,000 square feet of space here in Vegas that you'll see all kinds of advances. And we firmly believe that the future is more knowable than it feels. And that the change that we're seeing in technology, though impressive and incredible, it's following a more established path than maybe it feels like at first blush. So this is something we use. It's called our macro tech forces, and we've been doing it for a long time. So we have 16 years of tech trends research that was just published, and been doing for decades, following all the advances in technology, how it applies to business across industries, across government, around the world. And what I love about this is it tries to look at the things on the top, which from a tech lens are pretty familiar. What's the advances in computation? What are the advances in information? What are the advances in interaction? So anyone that's a technologist would recognize that as the architecture stack that's been in place since the beginning of computer science. And that's a good thing, because we can say with confidence, we're going to continue to see investments and advances, but they're going to follow that track. And if you look on the top, I'm an engineer, my wife's an English major. I love the idea that the end game are the words on top. That might feel poetic, but there's power in the idea that computation's moving toward abundance. Information is moving toward intelligence. Interaction's moving toward simplicity. There's a great quote, people think it's Steve Jobs, it's actually Da Vinci, the ultimate form of sophistication is simplicity. And so how do we think about all the new ways we're interacting with our technology and hopefully make it more natural and simple? And then the things on the bottom are the things that don't get a ton of attention, that actually are just as important, especially if you want to move from proofs of concepts and prototypes and demos to solutions that can change the world and drive transformative impact. And they're the ones that when I'm with CIOs and CTOs with our clients, there's almost a hallelujah, amen. Holly, I won't ask you for that from the stage, but we were talking back before, this idea that we've got to focus on the business of technology. How do we invest within our IT organizations? How does that extend into the business and into the mission if you're a government agency? And how do we have to bring technology into the act of deploying technology, which is very different than it's ever been before? How do we think about partnering differently? How do we think about our investment portfolio and the investments in Horizons Next, and not just being saddled with all the things we already are doing today? This middle, cyber, trust, security, privacy, regulatory compliance, ethics, morality, those can't be things we think about at the end. They have to be baked into our investment thesis, just because we can, should we, and what does it mean? And then we embed, how do we do things better in how we deliver technology inside. And then just core modernization. We're not starting from scratch. Even startups trying to sell into the market, you're selling to enterprise clients that have decades of technology investment that aren't just going to go away, and there's a ton of value that needs to be unlocked. So how do we invest to make that real? So I love this idea of all of those, there's tech happening in all of them, and this is just a visual to show our research over the years. It lights up each one of those areas in different ways over a decade plus. The theme of the report this year is AI everywhere. That's not us just taking a flyer and saying, of course, AI is dominating every conversation. The point of it is, just like there's not going to be a lot of booths at CES that have a big banner to say, now with electricity. AI is embedded in almost everything that we'll see at CES. It's actually embedded in advances across all the trends we're going to talk about, which is exceptionally important because it's shifting the mindset of AI as something different in its own on the side. Very few companies can say AI is their product. AI is a feature. How do we unlock it and unlock it with an eye to scale? So we're going to do speed dating, 6 trends featured in the report. There'll be a QR code at the end. You can download it. Ton of client examples. Some of the voices on stage featured heavily in it. But we're going to look through each one just a beat, and then we'll get into a deeper conversation and make it real. So the interaction macro force, spatial computing, as the trend that we're highlighting, and the idea that the physical and the digital worlds need to come together in a way that hasn't been possible before. And some of that's going to be unlocking new digital experiences. So VR, XR, MR, AR is an important piece of it. But it's not just that. It's also enterprise simulation. And it's the models that fuel physical robotics. And how do we think about the next wave of technology solutions that bring information technology, IT, and operational technology, OT, together? And by the way, embedded in PT, product technology, physical products in the world, how do all those three have to come together? And a really interesting piece of this is the infrastructure to do it has been lacking. Digital assets, how do we manage them? How do we deploy them? New interaction patterns. The models we need to train these advanced systems, all of that is a part of the trend about spatial computing. And I'm supposed to be clicking twice, so sorry we didn't get this elegant build. We'll get it next time for the second one. Okay, so the second, information. Of course, there's great advances happening within AI. So in its own trend chapter, even though it's embedded in everyone else, we did a highlight on what's new, what's happening, what matters in AI, and a couple of the big themes. The multimodal one, of course, important. And how do we think about not just more human senses? So far it's been about media types, text and video and audio. But we're saying that's important, and we're adding things that are beyond human capabilities into the systems. So data, machine vision that can see frequencies that we can't, olfactory interfaces, smell molecules is a piece of the model, which is coming. So there's a whole piece of multimodal. Multi-model, including small models, edge-deployed models, getting a lot of attention. And then how do we think about the investments needed to make that real to scale, which brings us all back to data, first, second, third party. How do we think about managing it, deploying it, unlocking it, and building models embedded in process, embedded in product, and not a standalone. Hardware's eating the world. And Teresa, famous quote, 12, 15 years ago, software's eating the world. We're at this interesting point where hardware matters again. And a lot of folks in the room that work in hardware industries might scoff at that and say, of course, it's always mattered. It was not a part of the conversation that I had with clients a lot in the last decade, at least compared to all the discussion about digital and data and information. It matters a lot again now. So from the advanced chipsets powering AI to how do we get embedded within edge systems, so the idea that we have not just large models running in the cloud, we have small models running on the edge, and then this idea of how do we think about the next generation of hardware that we need to figure out how to unlock. And one of those pieces is quantum. We'll hit again in the cyber chapter. So I love this emphasis. Cloud brought us to a point where we thought that hardware was just a commodity and it was something we didn't have to think much about. More and more CEO conversations about the investments needed to be made in hardware to fuel the tech trajectory that we know is coming in the next decade. Okay, the bottom of the ledger. So the three forces that don't get a ton of attention when we're talking about emerging tech. IT amplified. This is 100% about how do we embed advanced automation and intelligence in the way we deploy technology. So engineering is a capability. We're seeing a ton of investment in engineering experience, the tools our engineers need to use to unlock value, but also all the other stuff that we just typically haven't spent enough time and attention on. So the core operations, how does that get a plus with technology and automation? And then even into the things that may be a little bit softer, but how do we think about training and upskilling? Well, there's a huge piece of tech to do that in a different way than we ever did before. Hopefully gone are the days of 40-hour certification classes that are very passive and boring. Hey, how do we embed learning in the moment, make it much more immersive and impactful? Cyber and trust, the new math. So quantum, in all of its promise, We've had a quantum investment at Deloitte for years, and we're bullish about what it will mean. It won't replace cloud, it won't replace AI. It's a new capabilities. I'm a golfer, it's a new club in the bag. There's limited knowledge yet on the types of problems will be ideally solved with quantum, one of which is optimization algorithms, and one of those is the backbone of modern encryption. So that's a problem. We're calling it Y2Q, that we're seeing a looming sword of Damocles that we're going to have to invest to update our public and private key encryption schemes we've been using in all of our systems and all of our customer-facing products over the last several decades, because quantum will make that, frankly, irrelevant. The challenge is we don't have a deadline. We just hit the 25-year anniversary of Y2K. Those of us old enough to remember it knew the flurry of spend and investment. It's coming again without the hard deadline. It's real, and we need to start now. And there's great stories about organizations doing that. And the last one is this idea of the intelligent core. And so the backbone of core, the heart of the business, legacy systems, the investments we made in ERP, cloud systems over the years, we need to embed AI into the business processes, into those systems, and we need to use AI and advanced technology to help us migrate and modernize from the existing stack that we have. Whew, I'm going to take a breath. I got in late last night. I told you speed dating. But that's the survey. 6 trends across 6 macro forces. And now we're going to take a minute to actually dig deeper and make them real. So can we go through, and I hope there were some good meme moments of eye rolls or something behind me. This is an odd layout of...
got one in.
Deb, did you get one? Totally, good. You want to do a quick intro and we'll go down the line, then we'll get into it?
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'm Holly Walters, and I'm the CIO for Toyota Motor North America. Good to see all of you this morning. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for attending. Amit Ahuja, responsible for product management and product marketing for the Experience Cloud side of Adobe. So everything we do on the enterprise side, I run product and product marketing for that side.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm David Randle. I lead the spatial computing go-to-market for Amazon Web Services. I'm super excited to talk to you about our thoughts on this domain.
And I'm Deborah Golden. I'm Deloitte's Chief Innovation Officer. And I loved watching Bill dance across the stage, like the bouncing ball up here. So it was great. You have tons of energy this morning.
I charge my phone by my steps on stage. So
great. You got them all in.
You want to see the awkward, put me behind a dais and make me...
Got them all in.
All right, David. So we're going to go kind of in order. So spatial computing, obviously something that you spend a lot of time. You've got a great quote about how this is basically bringing the living world and the digital together and helping us promote not just understanding, but more. Tell us more about what it means to you, why you're so excited about it.
Yeah, I'll probably start by providing our definition of it.
Sure.
That should help level set, at least our approach. We believe that spatial computing harnesses 3D and visual data, geospatial and time-based data, and what we call behavioral data to create contextual experiences. What this means is that it transcends what can be done physically and what can be done virtually. And we're helping people bridge that gap by helping them create things like one-to-one replicas of physical experiences that they can do virtually. And on the other end, providing just-in-time information to folks that need to potentially repair an asset on the physical asset and everything in between. Right? Companies are using this to transform the way they train, the way they build their facilities, the way they sell their products, the way they advertise. It's really transformative in that regard.
And then in the operations as well, like what industries are we seeing traction, just to make it real on, hey, how could this apply maybe to folks in the audience?
So any industry that builds things is where we're seeing a ton of traction, right? Like the overall manufacturing sector, automotive. These are big sectors worth worth trillions of dollars in transformation, actually, according to Jensen's quote yesterday.
Yeah.
There's a ton of opportunity to optimize how these industries leverage these types of technologies to change the way they operate and improve the way they operate to hit all the goals that you summarized.
Okay. So Deb, the promise of, let's just say spatial, but it's probably more broadly of all these technologies. We can stand up, wave our hands, be excited. The push comes to shove when we get to cost, scale, security, and making it real in a way that actually moves the needle. what have you seen, and what advice, from your clients, from our own journey at Deloitte?
I mean, look, spatial computing allows us to ask the why not.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's an area where we need to be in. And of course, there's the operational efficiencies, there's the productivity we will inevitably get with spatial computing. What spatial computing allows us to do in the why not is discovery. And it's discovery that we wouldn't otherwise have. And some of it is basic discovery. How would we operate in virtual environments that we wouldn't have if we were sitting together, being together? But I think it's actually the next step that it allows us to get. What are the insights that we wouldn't otherwise have? So think of it if you're training virtual surgeons. So yes, operational efficiencies around how to train people, but what about stress? What happens when surgeons are stressed in operating rooms? Well, there's actually no other way today to actually test that. You don't want to test that when they're actually doing surgery.
Are you stressed?
Not sure about you, but that's not how I want to test that out.
Yeah.
But think about that on the manufacturing line. Think about that when you have people working 24/7 and they work 3 days on, 3 days off. The actual ability to take insights and apply those insights to actually looking at not only how to create efficiency, but to create actual stress point risk optimization is huge. And I think the ability to get that through spatial computing is how we take this to the next level.
Yeah, I love and both of you hit on, there's the passive, I don't mean in a negative way. How do we simulate? How do we prepare? How do we train? How do we be better ready? And then there's that same investment we made to do simulation before we build, before we train and deploy a surgeon, also gives us real-time, potentially feedback and maybe even more in the operations.
Yep.
So it's not like it's a standoff, we're going to invest to do this on the side, and then the underpinnings can play as we think about automating and improving business process as well. Yeah.
We find that there's a ton of value when a flywheel initiates around those 3 data sources, right?
Yes.
And the better companies are positioned to make that happen, the more benefit they're going to get, the sooner they're going to get that benefit.
But it doesn't just happen, because it's new investments of different types than we've ever had to make before, and that's okay, Amit. So I love with Adobe and been a great partner over the years. The experience piece of this is so important. And I've heard a few folks already this week say AI is the new UI. How do you think about how these come together in the investments you're making and helping your customers, our clients, to take full advantage?
Yeah, no, thank you. So, I mean, if you take a huge step back, what we do is we help brands really think about how to deliver the best digital experience wherever that person is.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, there's all these different changes or step functions, and AI is one of them. But if you rewind back, it used to be, I have a corner shop and somebody used to walk in, hey, what do you need? Right. Then it was all this, hey, how do I stand up a website? Then it was, hey, I need mobile. Then for a while it was the metaverse. And so you've seen these kind of different step changes. The AI one we think is 100% a massive change. And from our point of view, I think what every brand is trying to figure out is, hey, how do you now meet those consumer expectations in a different way? Yeah. I can ask the audience, how many people here use ChatGPT? Right, pretty much people are tired, but most hands I'm assuming would go up.
But it's early, some folks are tired. It's a lot of work.
I think the point of that is everyone's experiencing this new technology in different ways already. Yeah. And what we're trying to do is say, hey, for every brand experience, every CMO, every chief customer officer, every CEO, candidly, is saying, hey, what does that mean for my brand interaction? And so what do I do? And so I think what people are starting to say is, hey, I need to make it more interactive. How do I make the search experience better? How do I make sure whatever medium they're coming in across, whether it's voice, whatever mechanism, effective, we are helping power that. So it's just another mechanism, another channel, but is massively disruptive. It's incredibly interesting.
Yeah, and how do you, so I stood up our Deloitte digital business years ago, and one of the things even back then, when people say digital experience, of course you think about customer, maybe employee.
Yep.
But the front office, divorced from the back office, I'd argue has always been less than. And do you think that's even more exacerbated now with agentic is the buzz? Of course, it's one of the things we talk about in our chapter. To have agents, they have to have services and transactions that they can call upon. And so this the idea of it's a separate thing from the core is almost ludicrous.
I think the ludicrous part of it, to your point, Bill, is almost that people think it's such a separate thing where it doesn't involve all the core data sets and everything and all the training of the core enterprise data, right? Exactly to your point. I think this is a massive, we're seeing it every single day with our customers. We go in and they say, okay, hey, yeah, I want to be able to use this, but I need to be able to train off. I think somebody made a comment earlier. Where's my enterprise data? First party, second party, third party.
Yeah.
How do you ground on what that data actually means?
Yeah.
And if you're doing it in the context of support, great. How do you train off that? If you're doing it in the context of marketing, which a lot of people think about,
right.
Hey, what are people traversing that website experience today? How do I learn off that? So all this stuff needs to be fundamentally connected up, and it builds on that data foundation, which is, again, where we've been playing for years. So completely agreed. It's a forcing function of how to bring this stuff together.
Yeah.
All right, Holly, as the sitting CIO of one of the world's leading organizations, here's your chance to drop a little truth serum if you want on anything said so far, but also really want to get your thoughts on the point about embedding this in the core and then what it means to your IT department, like your team, and how you have to invest in the platform, the people, even the budget. The floor is yours. So.
Well, that's a really broad question. So I'll start with, you said about the front end and back end. There is no front and back end in this space. It is about two things. It is about customer and it's about team member experience.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where we got to focus, because the issue is in, as you mentioned right before, it's been talked about where it's all about the front end and then the back end kind of happens like it's magic. And I know a vast majority of this audience has probably seen both sides of that coin. Yeah. And I know all of you have. And what we see is that if we are going to use AI as a tool, but AI is not the answer to everything, how are we going to run an operating model that makes sense so that the customer, any of you from Toyota, unfortunately, are going to hear my old adage, which is customers do not care how we're organized, right? They don't care. They don't care what's front end and what's back end and they want their experience. And honestly, our team members sometimes fall into where we forget about that with our team members. That's where we've got to get to with all of this work around how we're embedding AI, how we're running, we talked about backstage, the business of IT. The business of IT has to change. And what that means is we can have brilliant technical folks, we can have brilliant tools, we can have brilliant data platforms, but if we don't have an operating model where we're running IT as a business, because IT is the business, how do we then effectively do what I just said, which is make sure their customers are at the focus, they're getting what they need, and our team members are able to function in a better way every single day. So that's what we're working on at TM&A with the help of many folks like Deloitte and many other AWS and Adobe, thank you all. So I think that's where we have to change the narrative. AI is here to stay. It will become ubiquitous in all of our processes, but we still need the right humans to make the right decisions in that space, and we have to provide those people the tools to do it in the right way. So that's my overall.
I love it.
And Bill, maybe to chime in just one sec. The interesting thing, what you said, two things. What you said, one, the adage of the org, we call it "don't ship our org chart." So it's a very similar adage, right? I think as a part. But just on the AI thing, where I love what you hit on. We meet with companies every day, similar to you, right, and talk about, hey, where are you? There's still so much trepidation, honestly, in the market. Right. And I would say we're still largely in the phase of experimentation, right? Where they're like, hey, I want to use this, but there's so much trepidation around what data am I using? What do you do with my data? Hey, you're creating all this content. How do I make sure it's on brand? How do I have the right compliance? So I know what world you're living in, and I just think that's a little bit of the reality of where we are.
No, and it's such a great point. And I think CES is a great embodiment of, I also hear a lot of, oh, we know we need to do something, but we're afraid if we invest now, the next shiny object is going to come and invalidate what we just did. And I think this is, if we walk the halls here, and what we really try to do, we love your guys' reaction to this, is shift the framing of, we know for a fact, technology will continue to advance, and there's trillions of dollar investment to make. How do we shift to the concrete bounded, here's what we're going to invest in now and why, and doing it in a way to give us some flexibility and optionality over time, but also not be so scared of perpetual progress to never get past go. I don't know.
I think it comes down to looking at data as this kind of everlasting value provider within organizations.
Yeah.
And so anyone that wants to be on trend, right, or ahead of trend, should repeat patterns that they do around security, around organization, around availability, around accessibility of their data, right? The data will continue to evolve, but the way you harness that and the way you deploy that against these new tools, like AI, like generative AI, like agentic AI, is what's going to keep you on the edge. That's my opinion, at least.
No, I would agree. And then how do you take that data and look at other data monetization, net new revenue pathways? So it's not just about the existing capability that you have within that data set. So I love the notion of first party, second party, third party data. So it's the actual insights that you're going to gain from that data, and then what can you do with it? I mean, the data ownership of king and queen for the day is actually what you do with that data. There's no shortage of data, period.
Yep.
It makes everybody here have something to do with it. It's what you can do with that data, and are you taking that data and actually looking at how to, we have been so focused on optimizing the data. Again, for me, it's the why not utilize that data, look at the convergence of that data, and monetize that data.
Yep.
Not commoditize.
Exactly.
Again, we've been commoditizing the data. How do you monetize that data? And I think the interesting thing that's going to come out is we're going to look to monetize that data with what has historically been your competitors. Your competitors are now going to become your partners. And so I think the world is going to shift in terms of how we actually look at commoditizing that across a competitor set that's now going to turn into your partner set.
Yeah.
So I think the rules of the road are going to shift more than what has historically been a very siloed way of going to market.
Yeah.
Even before, just to build on this point around data, because I think we're hitting on such a core, even before generative AI and the world of predictive AI, I remember, this is probably like 3-4 years ago, we're very lucky at Adobe. We hire these incredible data scientists, PhDs coming out of Stanford, MIT, and way smarter than me. And I remember we were sitting there in a meeting, and I asked one of them, I'm like, hey, how do you spend your time?
Yeah.
Right? And these are guys who were, and women who were just absolutely incredible and build these incredibly sophisticated model. And one of them actually said, I spend about 10% of my time actually building models, 90% of the time wrangling the data. Mm-hmm. Right? And so the point is, to your point around, hey, where should that investment go? And even the point we were trying to make earlier, back office, front office, I love how you said, like, that core infrastructure and how do you bring that together to enable whatever use cases arise, right, is still the foundation everybody needs to invest in. And that's where we are.
And Holly, and you've had such an amazing career, how have you seen the role of the tech leader change to help be the one to craft this vision and clarity and confidence in where and how to invest? I know it's still, the book's still being written, but how is it evolving in your world?
Yeah, if I think about where, so I've been in this role not quite 5 years. If I think about where we started, which by the way was during COVID, so that was fun. Learning 7,000 people by Teams was interesting. But I think where we started was just a recognition, and some of it was, the amount of legacy tech debt that we have, and many of you in the audience know exactly what I'm talking about. Many systems that have done very well for a long time, but they're not going to be able to move us forward the way we need. So to the point about how we're going to manage tech debt, how we're going to manage the business of IT, those were things that I started on quickly, just to get them understood. I think beyond that, now it's starting to shift to, now we're making sure that not only do we do those things, but we also need to now look at how are we shifting into the future, and how are we going to have the right talent, which we also have been working on for the last couple of years. But that talent changes to the point of, 5 years ago, we weren't talking about AI. It was there, but it was very, very small. How do we make sure now we're bringing on folks that can understand how to affect business value? And many times the idea of IT being sort of the back office function to make sure that if my computer's broken, that is not where we're at anymore. And it hasn't been for a while, but there are still pockets in organizations where people believe that. And that's where we're shifting. And my hope is that because of my background in different areas, that I can help from a CIO perspective to say, it is a business, and how do we run a business that adds value to, in my case, Toyota and our customers and our team members? So it's a shift in mindset from the sort of, again, more back office, which is sometimes historically the moniker of corporate IT,
Right.
To now how do we lead going forward? And I've actually stopped a little bit even talking about transformation, because what I worry about when we use those words is that if you talk about transformation, people think it's going to end. It's not going to end. It's just how the business is going to change what we deliver, how we deliver it, how customers view our services. So I'm now shifting that mindset and trying to shift that conversation, because I do think it's a very different, know that change is constant. There is no end. If you end, you become obsolete, and that's where we have to get to.
And one of my favorite clients ever used to say, we need a lot less fingers and a lot more thumbs.
Yeah.
And a part of that change is constant. And no board member, no C-suite would say, I don't care about risk. That's someone else's job.
Right.
I don't care about the finances of the organization. That's someone else's job.
Right.
We're at that point with technology.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And your point of there is no back and front office, that's a silly distinction. I was in a board 2 months ago, and I asked who would represent themselves from the business or technology, and someone got very angry.
Yes.
And saying, what an ill-founded question. and I loved it, because that was not the case. All right.
There was an interesting nugget out of the keynote last night, the NVIDIA keynote last night, a bit relevant to the topic you're discussing, Holly, which is that IT is going to look very different, right, in this future, where they become more like HR representatives, right? Finding the right balance between agents and
supporting, enabling, coordinating, orchestrating versus the brunt of. And I know this is a mixed room of folks in enterprise technology and private sector and entrepreneurs. I think there's something to be taken away from all of you on that evolution and how do you find market, especially with vertical. If you're in a startup or founder mode, the more verticalization, the better to tackle specific problems in that vein. All right, shift gears on quantum.
Okay.
Quantum's having a little bit of a moment right now, Deb.
Love it.
Right. UN said this 2025 is the year of quantum.
Year of quantum.
Quantum mania was Ant-Man next year. I don't know if that applies, but I mentioned this Y2Q and specifically quantum encryption decryption, which is a piece of the broader quantum computing. But what guidance? Because you used to lead our cyber business. People don't know.
Yes.
How would you help people think about where we are in that movie?
Well, I mean, I could get us into a Black Mirror world pretty quickly. I will not do. We don't have enough time for that, although I could get us there pretty quickly with that. But I mean, I think the interesting thing on quantum, and one of the things I try not to do with the interesting analogy to Y2K is a lot of people still roll their eyes about Y2K because it was the thing that happened that never happened. And so those of us who lived through it would say it's the thing that happened that never happened, because we could still debate whether something actually happened on the system side. But we spent a lot of time and money and energy preparing for it. And those of us who waited and watched the clock turn, and we're all like, okay, clock changed, what happened?
Right.
And quantum, and particularly quantum encryption, is actually frighteningly different. Because at the end of the day, what it is actually a complete shift and change to perhaps the one thing that we know today, which is our encryption technology. And so it's not an if, it's a when. The question is, it is the when.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that and I have sat on closed door Capitol Hill, I've been in a number of different sessions where talking to defense entities, when you think about where we are and where we're headed, again, Black Mirror world, it could be very disruptive. If you think about what your data is, back to the notion of data, a lot of people may know where their crown jewels are, what are their important systems, what are the things that are very near and dear to them. The question that they don't know is, how long do they need to be secure? And so that is the one thing I tell every executive. What do they need to understand? Do you need that data to be secure for 1 day, 1 year, or 100 years?
Yeah.
That is the most important thing that you can understand right now about your crown jewels, because what criminals are doing today, and we know this for a fact, is that they're stealing data today in the hopes that whenever quantum actually comes around, it will be unencrypted tomorrow, in a month, in a year. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like the grab bag. I don't know how many of you went to the store and bought the grab bag for $5, not knowing what you were going to get in that bag. It could have been nothing. It could have been coal, or it could have been gold. Cyber criminals are doing that. They're hoping for the gold. And so if you don't know if your data can be stored for a day, a month, or a year, that's where your biggest weakness is. And most of our clients, most of our customers don't know how long that they need their data to be encrypted. And so if I were to tell anybody to do anything right now, it's just to make sure you not only know what your crown jewels are, but how long do you need them hardened.
I love it. I'd add one, I love it. The other thing I'd add is when we did Y2K, ton of investment in these core systems. We're looking back now and saying, oh, if only we would have taken the time to get them ready for this data future world, this agentic world with well-defined transactions and systems. We're going to have to go in and invest to protect our systems in the next 1 to 10 years. I take the former, anchoring it more versus the latter, but it's coming. If the patient's already open on the table, or my team told me they hate that analogy, so if the car's already in the garage up on the lift, can we use this moment in time for a very real investment we need to make for quantum readiness to actually move the ball in the places that matter on data and services and transactions?
Well, 100%. I mean, the same way when you are building a brand new bridge today, you don't build it with materials from yesterday. So you're going to build today, and you have to think about what the weather is going to bring for tomorrow. So you should not stop thinking about that investment for quantum. Again, I think, and I've talked to so many people from around the globe to think about what quantum technology is and will be, and it literally is just gasoline on the fire for AI. And since AI technology is evolving at a pace that we would never have expected, quantum will be here sooner than we expect it to be. So again, it is not a matter of if, it is simply a matter of when. And so waiting for that to happen is candidly just a fool's errand, to be honest with you.
Okay, we're going to switch off of quantum for a beat. But my last, our quantum leader, Deloitte's quantum leader, likes to say, the thing we have to figure out is how to solve problems with physics instead of math.
Yeah.
That being the definition of quantum, and we're still early days of from quantum to humanity. How about that, Amit? So a part of the report's talking about a really good emphasis on, even with technology, AI embedded advancement, it's elevating the role of creativity, of purpose, of orchestrating, like we said. How do you see that? How is it manifesting in Adobe and in the market for you, like this?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to be made around job loss and last few years, everyone talking about, hey, what's the effect? I mean, we have a very firm belief on this, right? Which is creativity is still very uniquely human.
Yeah.
Right. And so where Adobe has played for years is enabling everyone to tell their story. And so our view of this, how do we give more and more capabilities within the tools that we provide, right, to enable people to do that faster, better, and easier. But it's really about enhancing and amplifying that creativity versus just flat out replacement, right? And so it's actually very interesting. We have an AI model called Firefly. If everyone hasn't played with it, I recommend you do. It's pretty incredible. And what was fascinating to watch is, hey, we had Firefly.com, and people could go use Firefly and go play around, and the numbers were just staggering of who was using it. Then what we did is we said, well, this is great. Let's put it inside of Photoshop, right? Yeah. Let's go make it where people actually use their workflows every single day, where people sit and breathe every single day to do their jobs. And then usage just went absolutely skyrocketed, right? And it just proves the point that what people are looking for is, hey, I'm trying to do a job. I'm valuable, I still want to, but help me automate some of the things I can do and help me actually use, again, it was my point earlier about the PhD folks. Let me do what I'm really good at and take away some of the more automation capabilities. But it's really about amplification, right? And it's about how do you enhance that creativity is the way we're thinking about it at Adobe.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes. I want to go down the line. One thing that you're looking forward to, either in the show for the next 3 days of CES or more broadly coming to 25. Let's anchor it on trends, or I'd have to say Notre Dame winning the championship, which would be very pandering. I'm gonna go Irish. Deb, you want to start?
Oh my gosh. I actually am a huge fan of the creativity and curiosity. So what I'm looking forward to is literally humanity and all the curiosity that we're going to be able to be enabled by. And we will obviously use AI for that, but it's creativity and curiosity.
Love it. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to 2 things. One is physical AI, right? Yeah. The ability to intimately understand the way we function with our world. And also what we're seeing happen with new form factors of wearables that I think are actually going to dawn, that people are going to dawn. The reason I'm excited about these is because for the first time, I think we'll have the ingredients for the killer app for spatial computing, right? I think we've been kind of looking for that. People have been digging here and there, but I think it's with these ingredients that we're going to see something pretty miraculous happen.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was my comment earlier was I think we're still largely in experimental mode. I think this year, I think there's multiple phrases for it. Yeah. Toy to tool, playground to production. I don't know. I could sit here and name 5 idioms. But it's the same concept as saying, like, hey, how do you actually mainstream this where you actually see real efficiency and value realization? That's what I'm super excited about.
Okay.
And I would say 2 things. One is how do we continue to create business process for people, both, again, team members and consumers, to use tools and have those tools run for those folks in a seamless way. So I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about how do we use all of this to unleash our talent. And the talent is all of you. It's at all of our companies. How do we continue to unleash that talent to make the future better? To Deb's point, how do we create different ways for humanity to work together to create something that's better? And that's what I'm excited about for this next year.
I love it. I'm going to close this with this tired and trite quote, but William Gibson, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Hopefully you can see that from Deloitte's Tech Trends report, QR code on the page, download it and check it out. Love feedback. Hit me up on LinkedIn. But what a brilliant way to start off CES. Thank you all. Give a panel a round of applause, please. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the show.